First order of business today is House Bill 2020. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2020, the chair recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise before the body to present House Bill 2020. What this bill does is codify something that's been happening episodically over the last 15 years. About 6 times over the last 15 years, the Secretary of State's office has been able to get the Department of Revenue Vehicle Division to send them a list of non-citizens who have driver's licenses, and then compare that list to the voter rolls to identify non-citizens and remove them from the voter rolls. A lot of folks don't know this, but while Kansas is a real ID state, you don't have to be a citizen to get a real ID. When you go to the DMV, if you are not a citizen, you just have to present proof of who you are, such as your passport from whatever country you are a citizen of, and proof that you are a legal resident of the United States, either showing your alien registration card, your green card, or showing documentation that you have refugee status through the CBP-1 app that was used by the last administration, or whatever. You can get a driver's license. Also, like every state in the union now, because of the National Voter Registration Act, Kansas is a motor voter state. At the DMV, they ask you, do you want to register to vote? And so it is possible that an inattentive, overworked worker there at the DMV, or a non-citizen who's not paying attention or has trouble with English might accidentally get registered to vote at the DMV. And that's why the successive Secretary of States have asked the DMV to provide a list of non-citizens with driver's licenses to compare to our voter rolls, just to spot those folks. This is not a hypothetical thing that might happen. The last time that the Secretary of State's office got this data was in November, and they've identified as many as 80 people who are might be non-citizens that they're investigating to get them off the voter rolls. And 20 of those people, there's evidence that they voted in the last election. So this is just a common sense way to make sure and be able to tell Kansans, no, non-citizens are not voting in our state, by checking and removing them from the voter rolls. What this bill would do would regularize that process that's happened episodically. Quarterly, the DMV would provide a list of non-citizens who had applied for driver's licenses recently to the Secretary of State. Secretary of State would be required to investigate, because there's more than one John Smith in the state of Kansas. They'd have to investigate to make sure that that person is the same person who's on the voter rolls. The DMV would be providing the name, the address, the social security number if the non-citizen has one, the alien registration number if the non-citizen has one, to the Secretary of State with the birth date, so that they could compare and make sure that they've got the right person when they're on the voter rolls. The Secretary of State would then be required to tell the county election officer to remove that person from the voter rolls. Because the Secretary of State doesn't have the ability to add or remove people from the voter rolls. The software only allows the county election officers to do that. The county election officer, when notified, would have 5 days to remove that person and notify that person that they have been removed. And I think that's the most important point that I want to leave you with before I stand for questions. There is due process built into this bill. The voter will be notified that they're being removed, and they can go to the election office with their proof of citizenship, and they will be added back to the voter list. Maybe they weren't a citizen when they got their driver's license, but they've since become naturalized. They can just bring that certificate of naturalization to the election officer. They'll be put back on the voter rolls. If all else fails, and that voter didn't receive the notice, or didn't pay attention to the notice, they can vote a provisional ballot on election day at their polling place, and then they will have until the canvass 2 weeks later to provide proof that they're a citizen, so that their vote will be counted. There's tons of due process in this bill. So, body, I urge your support of this bill, and I'll stand for questions. I appreciate the debate and the civil discourse on this bill. I've heard several people on the other side say that the net result of this bill would be 0 non-citizens found on the voter rolls. I disagree, but let's for a moment imagine that that is the result of this bill. We scrub our voter rolls every quarter looking for non-citizens, and we do not find a non-citizen on the voter roll. That is a positive result because we can tell voters confidently that non-citizens are not voting in our elections because we checked. Right now, we are not regularly checking. We just checked in November. I have no idea how long it had been before that, but only 6 times in 15 years have we checked to see if people that we know are non-citizens because they got a driver's license with credentials showing that they're non-citizens, only 6 times have we checked to see if they're also on our voter rolls. So when we tell Kansans right now, non-citizens aren't voting in our state, we're lying. Because the fact is we don't really know because we're not checking that hard. This would allow us to tell the voters of Kansas with confidence, yes, your vote is being counted, and no invalid votes are being counted that would dilute your vote. So